Hi guys, in this video we're looking at a mock test from Watnall Driving Test Centre, and we're starting just outside the gates. You'll see them on the right as we pull away, and this one you might notice is in my manual car, the red Peugeot. So I don't offer manual lessons anymore, but of course I can still help out with advice in terms of using manual cars. Having 10 years experience teaching manual, I've converted to the dark side and I am staying there. As we're coming down this road, you'll notice the warning sign on the left there telling us about a junction up ahead. These signs are going to be in place where it is more difficult to see the road that's there. So of course the examiners want to see you adapting your speed and just being a bit more attentive to the mirrors and the road ahead when you're approaching things like that. Them signs are always there to help you out. Up ahead we've got a mini roundabout and we'll be turning right towards Hucknall. The direction sign on the left here is very early for the roundabout, and you'll see there's a road on the right which is a cul-de-sac. It's got the blue sign with the cul-de-sac, the dead end, and no through road sign on it. So as we go past that, we can then check our mirrors and indicate ready for our right turn. Pupil does a really good job approaching this and watches out for the cars on the right. However, she doesn't put the signal on until she's at the junction. So this has to go down as a driver fault for signal timing. We want to be signaling in good time so people know what we're doing before we get to that junction. While we're waiting, you notice this learner on the right stalls as they enter the junction. They do a really good job at recovering and moving on, and that's exactly what we want to see if you do stall on your test. Just restart the car, check it's safe, and of course make your way off nice and smoothly. We don't want to rush, but we also don't want to dither too much. As we enter this new road, you notice it's a national speed limit road. We've got a few bends coming up, so we're not going to progress it to 60 miles an hour at this point. Keep your eyes up and ahead into the bend and adapt your speed based on what you can see. You notice my learner is a little more cautious here because this sun glare was absolutely blinding and it made it very difficult to see the next bend and the markings and what was going on. So she took her time really nicely coming into the next bend. And as we come round, we've got the sun out of our face and we can make progress along the nice straight stretch towards Hucknall. This is a 60 mile an hour, remember, so we want to see really good progress up to speed. We also want to see mirror use, and we also want to see good use of the gears. If you're sitting at 50 mile an hour in fourth gear, you're going to have the engine screaming at you, and this will be recorded as an eco driving error on your test. It doesn't count towards your driving faults or your result. You'll just be advised to use the gears more effectively. As a rough guide, you can use 10 mile an hour windows for each gear change. So first gear between 0 and 10, second gear between 10 and 20, third gear between 20 and 30, and so on, right up until you get to the top gear of your vehicle. In my case, that's 6, so when you get above 50 mile an hour, you should be in 6th gear, provided you're maintaining that speed and you don't need the additional power for hills. As we come up, we've got a few warnings about bends. So this is where the examiners want to see you reducing your speed, just letting go of the power initially and covering the brake if you're not sure. You can always then add the brake nice and smoothly to control the speed. In a manual car, again, you want to be bringing those gears down to match that speed. So as your speed drops, come down. Gear by gear is absolutely fine, although if you're skipping gears, that's okay too. So you can go from 4th to 2nd if that's what the situation demands. In this case, 1 at a time works perfectly. As we come around the bend, we're entering a 30 mile an hour zone, and then we've got 2 roundabouts. We're going ahead at both of them towards Hucknall, and on both of these, it's left lane, first exit. There's no left turns. So you want to make sure you're tucking into that left-hand lane and just making sure you don't cut the second lane up as you go across the roundabout. A good check on that right mirror is also helpful here, just to ensure that if anyone is using that lane, you're aware of them and you can adapt your position if you need to, or your speed. Second roundabout, it's the same principle. Use that left-hand lane, tuck right into the left-hand corner. Watch the right mirror for anyone using the second lane so you don't cause them a problem, and keep yourself nice and progressive as you go through, maintaining that momentum if you can. At this point, I've asked my pupil to pull over at a safe and convenient place. The examiners will ask you to do this several times on your driving test, and all they're after is that you check your mirrors, you signal, and you stop in a position that allows cars to get past you safely, that doesn't obstruct the road and that doesn't obstruct driveways, that's legal as well, that you're not on double yellows or anything like that. So the pupil's picked a really nice spot here between the driveways. She's tucked in as close to the curb as she can, and she's just waiting for the cars to pass before moving on again. When you move on, not forgetting that blind spot check before you move, and making sure that when you pull out you make good progress and you don't cause other traffic to have to slow down behind you to avoid you. This bit here, my pupil does struggle to get the car moving again. It doesn't cause an issue as such, so I'm not going to mark that as a fault. What I am going to mark, however, is the sharp stop just before this junction. We should be keeping the side roads clear if we can. I think in this circumstance the pupil could have crossed the junction safely and stopped on the other side, but instead chose to brake, and the brake was just used a little bit too firmly for my liking. Can't really see that on the camera too much, but you can feel it in the car. And of course, when you're driving on your test, you want that examiner to feel as comfortable and relaxed as possible. Up ahead we've got a roundabout. We're going straight ahead towards Watnall again. That is the second exit here. Now the normal thing to do is use the left hand lane, and the exception is if there's markings telling you different. The arrows here tell us very clearly left hand lane for straight, so the pupil lines up really nicely for that. The fault that I'm going to record here, the junction itself was done really nicely, but as we come across the roundabout and she went to change to second gear, she pressed on the accelerator a little bit too firmly, revving the engine, and then dumped the clutch quite quickly, which caused the car to surge forward a little bit there. It's not very obvious on the camera, but you can definitely feel it when you're in the car. So again, we want to keep the examiner comfortable and relaxed on our drive. We don't want to give them any excitement like that. I'm going to ask my pupil to turn right in a moment, and there is a filter box for this. The idea of these, of course, is if you need to stop and give way to the oncoming cars, all four wheels in that box, and that allows the oncoming cars to pass you safely and the cars behind that are carrying on straight to get past you safely too. Because we've got a clear view, I take no issue with how my pupil tackled this. I don't think it's worth recording any faults. I'm going to get my pupil to do an angle start at this point, which is where we pull up a car length away from a parked vehicle. The examiners will specifically say don't worry about the driveways if there's one nearby. So on this occasion, no fault for pulling up across the driveway because I've asked my pupil to stop there. You'll get one of these on your test, and you will pull up and move off several other times, but not for an angle start. In doing this, all the examiners want to see is that you can move away safely around the parked car. So it's accounting for the space you need to maneuver around it, the observations, of course, over your right shoulder and at what's coming up behind, and of course accounting for the oncoming cars if there are any. So a really controlled demonstration of that by my pupil there, absolutely flawless. We're going to do our show me question here. You'll see the washers and wipers start going. So you'll be asked to do one of these on your driving test. We've got a fault here as well for position normal driving, and you'll notice as we pass these two parked cars, my pupil stays out on the wrong side of the road for quite a while before gently bringing it back in. Now I think we could have brought that in a lot sooner, particularly with the oncoming car, and that's exactly what we should be doing in these situations, not staying out on the wrong side of the road any longer than we need to. So as soon as you pass those parked cars, get on those left mirrors and bring yourself back into your side of the road. Notice the warning sign for the bend ahead here. My sat nav tells my pupils to turn left, but of course the bend there means we're not turning, we're just following the road round. On this estate, we've got a few tight corners that my pupil's going to have to deal with, and the aim of these, of course, is we just want to come in nice and slowly. Same routine as normal, check your mirrors, get the signal on, reduce your speed, lower the gear, and keep the car tucked into your side of the road. And of course, with the junctions being a lot tighter and the visibility being not very good, we just need to make sure that speed is lower to do these kind of junctions. Taking the next road on the right. Again, it's quite hard to see into this one, so we want to bring the car forward, see what's coming the other way if anything, and bring the car to our side of the road. The pupil does a really nice job of that. I'm going to get her to do a manoeuvre now, pulling up on the right and reversing 2 car lengths. So the aim of this is pulling up at a safe place on the right, getting nice and close to the curb and nice and straight. The examiner will then ask you to reverse 2 car lengths. One thing they really do want to see you doing here is looking around over your shoulders frequently, and unfortunately my pupil on this one, she doesn't look around at all, and as a result I've got to record that as a serious fault for this manoeuvre. So while you're reversing, you're checking over your left shoulder and your left mirrors to see what's coming up the road from behind, and your right mirror and your right shoulder to ensure the footpath and the driveways are not going to be a problem for you as well. If you're not looking around, you're not aware of what's behind you, and it is going to get recorded as a serious fault. If there's anything there and the examiners have to intervene, then that's going to escalate to a dangerous fault. So make sure you're looking around effectively. When we move away as well, got to watch that left hand side before you move out, making sure nothing's coming up the road and nothing's coming up from behind before committing to moving out into the road. These roads are particularly narrow, and with all the parked cars there's a lot of moving in and out. We want to be very mindful of cars coming the other way if we see any, and we want to be on those mirrors quite frequently too. This is going to help you be more aware of the space around you and keep you safer and in better control. As we turn right here, again it's a really tight corner, and this pupil controls it really well, bringing the car straight into the correct side of the road before moving up to the end of the road, where unfortunately she's going to pick up a fault for moving off under control. A lot of modern cars have hill assist, which means if you're on a slight hill, the car will not move straight away when you use the clutch alone. You have to rev the engine to make the car pull away. This pupil tries to pull away using just the clutch, and unfortunately the car doesn't let her go because the hill assist holds onto the brakes for an extra couple of seconds. What we should be doing is revving the engine, or just being patient with that clutch and letting the car release the brakes, or overriding it by revving the engine gently. Up ahead, I've asked my pupil to pull up at a safe place on the left, and unfortunately she pulls up in front of someone's driveway. She does correct it, but I'm still going to record a fault because she scrapes the curb when she corrects it, and I'm going to record a second fault because when she corrects it, she gets a blind spot as well. If you do pull over and realise you need to correct where you are, then make sure you check the blind spot and shuffle the car forward nice and gently then. And of course, we don't want to be scraping against the curb, as this could potentially damage the tyre and shorten its life. You could also end up scratching your very pretty alloy wheels, and nobody wants to do that on their brand new car, do they? One of my top tips for pupils is whenever you pull up at the roadside like this, take that time to take a few breaths, calm your nerves, and reset. Everything that's happened up to that point does not matter anymore. You can't go back and change it. What you can change is how you deal with what's next. And if you focus on the next part of the driving, even if you've already failed, you're at least going to come out with a better result than just letting it get on top of you and letting those nerves take over. So every chance you get to pull over and stop and breathe, reset, and consider it a new drive as you move on. As we come to the end of the road, we'll be turning left, and this junction in particular is quite closed off. The road to the left, we've got a lot of parked cars, and off to the right, the road bends away to the right, so we can't really see what's coming until we stick our nose out. So you can see the pupil there bringing the car to a complete halt before moving out, so she can effectively see what's coming, and that's absolutely spot on. These kind of situations, you can see the pupil holding back to let the other car through, and that's exactly what we should be doing if we're not confident that we can fit through that space. Up ahead, I'm going to mark a serious fault, and this is a really common one for this junction. Notice the sign on the left there saying left only and the arrow saying left only. Up ahead, you'll see 2 no entry signs as well. When you are starting your driving test, the examiners will brief you saying follow the road ahead unless signs or markings direct you otherwise. In this situation, that is exactly what they're referring to. The signs and markings direct you to the left. The pupil failed to respond to those signs, so I've had to bring her to a stop and then point her in the right direction. As we come round, this is a one-way street, so we shouldn't have to worry about oncoming cars. But of course, people make mistakes, as my pupils just demonstrated, so make sure you're looking ahead into those corners, watching out for anyone coming the other way, even where they shouldn't be. At the end, if you notice the markings and signs, we'll be taking a right turn, so we need to position on that right hand side and we need to stop completely. If you do not stop completely at a stop sign, it will be a serious fault on your test because it's a legal requirement. You must stop completely. And normally these are in place where the junctions are really difficult to see out of, and that of course means we have to stop and look around before we commit to going out into that new road. Just up ahead, as we come into Watnall town centre, there's another example of following the road as the signs and markings direct. So we can see up ahead there's a 20 sign. There's a sign there saying you can only go right, Nottingham, Mansfield. And then at the traffic lights, you'll notice the arrow on the road saying right only, the no left turn sign on the traffic light. And up ahead, you can see the bus lane signs. So the only place we can go is round to the right. A lot of the time, the examiners will not say a word to you here, and they will watch how you respond to those signs. If you do try and go straight ahead, it is a serious fault because it's a bus-only road. At the traffic lights, we're going to be continuing straight as well. The examiners may not direct you here, and they may not point out that the markings tell you what lane to be in. If you do find yourself in the left-only lane here, the best solution is going to be to just go where that lane is pointing. So if you find yourself in a left-only lane, just turn left. While we're waiting at traffic lights as well, it's always good to keep your eyes moving, looking around for anyone approaching from behind, looking for vehicles ahead as well and from the sides. As you go across the junction, remember, a green light doesn't mean you can just go, it means go if it's safe. So this is a way of keeping you safe. It's not just a box ticking exercise to get you through your test. As you go through that junction, if you get a blue light vehicle coming from either side or a cyclist who hasn't responded to the traffic light, then of course we could prevent the problem by spotting that early and holding back. The same with pedestrians here. You'll get those people who will run across the road and not really pay attention to what the lights are doing or what the traffic's doing. So be very mindful as you go along, keep your eyes moving, and of course make progress if it's safe to do so. There's several parts along this road where it gets quite tight with the parked cars, especially if there's oncoming traffic too. So Reducing your speed and using your mirrors is going to help you deal with that more effectively and keep you safe. We don't want to come through there at full speed because it's just not going to give you the time to coordinate through that space, and it's not going to give the oncoming traffic the time to respond to you as well. At mini roundabouts, it's important to remember that priority belongs to the cars from your right, and that means that cars on your left are responsible to give way to you. I'm going to mark my pupil serious fault here for a new hesitation because we can see the right hand side is absolutely clear and yet she still stops completely. This causes an issue for traffic behind, which otherwise could have just carried on through the junction too. So it's disrupting the flow of traffic, and it also creates the risk that that car behind may have seen the gap and may have assumed we were going and could have went straight into the back of us. And whilst that isn't our fault because we should always be following at a safe distance, it's preventable on our part, and that's exactly why it's got to be a serious fault. As we come up to this roundabout, I've asked my pupil to turn right, and that's the second exit towards Watnall. Now, of course, because we can only go straight or right, the pupil should be checking her mirrors and signalling right and then positioning right as we come up to the roundabout. My pupil doesn't signal right while she's doing this turn, unfortunately, and if that results in any conflict or anyone to stop unnecessarily or pull out on you, then that can become a serious or dangerous fault very, very quickly. The HGV coming up to the roundabout doesn't cause us a problem, and we don't appear to cause him a problem on this occasion, so I've only marked it as a driver fault. As we enter the national speed limit zone here, we can progress up to 60 miles an hour, and whilst my pupil is a little bit cautious at getting that speed up initially, it didn't cause enough of an issue to warrant any fault in my opinion. Remember that HGV at the roundabout is very, very slow to progress out of that junction, so we don't cause him any issue by doing what we've done here, and that's why I'm not going to record any fault. The next roundabout seems to catch a lot of people out, even though it is marked very, very clearly. So we've got a left or straight option at this roundabout. If you're going left, mirrors and signal left, position in the left-hand lane, and off you go when it's safe. If you're going straight on this roundabout, mirrors, position on the right, and then straight through. And you'll see those markings as we come up to the roundabout. Like I say, this is a really common mistake for people to make. My pupil pulls into that left-hand lane to carry on straight. There's nobody close enough to cause a danger, so I've allowed her to carry on. However, if there was a car nearby, this could have escalated very quickly into a dangerous fault rather than a serious fault. Be very, very mindful of those markings and make sure that you're pointing the car into the correct lane. And like I said earlier, if you find yourself in a left-only lane, go left. Don't go straight ahead from a left-only lane, because it will cause confusion for other drivers and it will always be recorded as a serious fault. At the roundabout that's coming up, we're going to be taking a left turn, and unfortunately my learner makes a series of mistakes on this one. The first one, as we approach, you'll see the car jolt as she puts it down into second gear instead of fourth. That of course can cause the car to slow down quite quickly, and that's not good if there's cars behind. We've then got an undue hesitation and we've got a clutch control fault. The hesitation one's pretty apparent here. We're sat here waiting to turn left. You can see several vehicles in the right hand lane join the roundabout. Meanwhile, my pupil sits and waits, and she's too busy looking at the traffic instead of choosing the gap to actually cross into. As we move away then, as she starts pulling away, she jumps off the clutch a little bit too sharply, and that causes the car to jump. Now, I do believe that was caused by a little bit of panic, realising that she should have taken that gap and then trying to rush to overcompensate for the delay caused the undue hesitation. So be very mindful that if you do miss an opportunity, that you don't overcompensate by hurrying yourself into the next gap. The trick is to keep yourself in the moment and keep yourself nice and calm and focused. Never rush to compensate for a mistake that you've made. Just up ahead, as we head back towards Watnall, there are two roundabouts. These ones were at the start of the test route video. As we come from this direction, we've got to use the right hand lane to go straight ahead at both of them. The left hand lane at both is left only. Once again, my pupil is going to use that left hand lane to go straight ahead. So like I said earlier, if you find yourself in a left only lane, make sure you go to the left. As you can see, there's a vehicle comes straight past us in that right hand lane, and that is exactly the risk that we don't want to be taking. If we ended up joining the roundabout at the same time, that would result in a very close call at best. So be very attentive to those road markings and make sure you're using the correct lane for the roundabouts. At the next roundabout, we're going to do the same thing using that right hand lane to go straight ahead. My pupil puts a right signal on, even though it's not a right turn, so don't use incorrect signals. She also stops for nothing, which happened earlier as well. So when you can see the cars on the right, they're far enough away that we could have entered the roundabout without an issue. And additionally, they're in the left-hand lane for their approach, which says straight ahead only. So we can use that knowledge to our advantage. I'm also going to record a driver fault for signal timing, because as my pupil left the roundabout, she left her signal on for just a little bit too long. If she'd have left it on any longer, then this could escalate to a serious fault, and if it caused another vehicle to respond by pulling out of a side road, that of course would escalate into a dangerous fault. So be very, very mindful to turn your signals off after each turn. Most cars will automatically cancel, so of course give the car a chance, but if it doesn't, make sure you cancel that signal. Making our way down this road, it is a national speed limit. You can see my pupils keeping into the sort of mid-40s, and that's absolutely fine. However, we should be aiming for 60 if the road is clear and safe to do so. Up ahead, we've got a couple of bends. We want to be responding by letting go of the power nice and early here to let the car decelerate naturally, and that's exactly what my pupil does here, and that's fantastic to see. She's then bringing the gears down to match that speed, ready for those bends, and of course we don't want to come around those at 60. The first bend, we're kind of looking around about 25-30 mile an hour as an ideal approach speed, and then the second bend we're looking about 15 to 20 mile an hour. That's going to keep them comfortable and safe, particularly given the warnings we have here that tell us after the second bend there is a give way. Now that is a mini roundabout that we came across near the start of the test where we turned right towards Watnall, so we're just coming back the other way to turn left towards Watnall, back where we started. As we approach, of course, mirror checks and signals. You can see here my pupil doesn't signal correctly for this. She actually doesn't signal at all for this. So of course nobody knows where she's going, which means we're not giving people the information they need to make a safe decision to go or not. The roundabout is very quiet, so I'm only going to record a driver fault because it didn't cause an impact on any of the drivers at this time. I'm just going to record a driver fault for speed here as well. The pupil does creep over the speed limit. She gets to about 33 mile an hour before she corrects it. So it's not significant enough or prolonged enough to mark anything substantial. So just a driver fault on this occasion. As you can see on the left, this is just coming past Watnall Driving Test Centre now. So we're going to pull into the car park, and that's going to bring the end to this mock test. So if you've found this useful, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you ever so much for watching, and God bless.